Hello and welcome to Business Class. My name is Shantanu Prakash, and today we have a very special guest that is helping India and Indian couples make more babies. Dr. Saarthak Bakshi, he is the CEO of the International Fertility Center, one of the largest chains of fertility centers across the country. They have 14 centers and have helped more than 5,000 couples so far. But what is interesting is for such a serious and adult business, he is a young entrepreneur and the recipient of the Forbes 30 Under 30 award for healthcare. Sarthak, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Sarthak, you've been a serial entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And usually young people start businesses that are focused on technology or some kind of IT, and you're an engineer yourself, right? So how did you think about doing something in the fertility space?
So you're actually very right that I did start something in technology before starting the fertility business. And as an entrepreneur, I think I would not say it's necessary to fail, but failure is a very important curve during every entrepreneur's journey. And luckily, I had at the first step, and luckily I had great parents to support me during that difficult times. And once I had learned my mistake from that first venture, is that when I ventured into the fertility industry with my mother, who's my co-founder and an IVF specialist, and that's how we began our journey in the fertility business.
So, Sarthak, interesting. You started your entrepreneurial journey with a gaming company, which was a bit ahead of its time, and that eventually shut down.
Yes.
And then you ventured into a completely different space of providing these automated laundromats, and that too didn't succeed. So usually, it's exciting that you started your life with two failures, and both your parents are doctors.
Yes.
So was it that they gave you the space that son, go out and do your thing, but after these things didn't work out, your mom said, "Okay, this is enough. Now I'm going to give you the business idea, and you have to now get into the domain expertise that I have." Did the conversation go something like that?
It did not go it that way, but yes, I went into the fact that yes, you're an expert. I have learned a lot of other things from my failures, and I would like to partner with an expert so that I can successfully start something. Because in both those journeys, I felt yes, that you have to be a complete expert or a completely skilled person in something that you start. Your USP should not only lie in terms of your management skills, because that's not a USP anymore. That you're operationally great or you can handle a team of 20 people. That is nothing fancy about it. So it has to be something more than that. And that is where I said that, Mom, okay, you're an expert, you're a great clinician, but what do you do apart from the other part? Let me handle all the other things which I have understood. And I have a trustable co-founder who, even after bitter fights, as we had a lot of co-founder fights before in my earlier venture, that no matter how much we fight, you will finally accept me as my son, and I will always respect you as my mother, and we'll eventually keep on going together. And that's where we started this journey.
That's an interesting model of entrepreneurship. Yeah. So when people want to decide to get co-founders,
I would say that
they should look within their own family.
No, family, or you have to trust them more than your wife. I mean, I believe you would have also had a co-founder at a certain point of time if you haven't.
Sarthak, the fact that your mother is one of the leading specialists in India in the area of fertility and a well-known doctor, but you would have analyzed the business opportunity and created a business plan. That is not something that doctors are trained to do. And I'm sure you brought that skill to the table. So why did you specially get into this business? Is this a big opportunity in India?
It's a huge opportunity. I would say infertility, it's a lifestyle disease. It's increasing rapidly. Every 1 in 6 couples faces this problem of having to reproduce. And once you look at fertility in an overall scenario, the success for fertility or success to have a baby through fertility treatments is only 40 to 50%, and that's worldwide. So there are more chances of failure rather than success. So when I looked at it, not from a clinical perspective, but from an overall perspective, that what could be the reasons for failure, there were more than 200 to 300 reasons which were not clinical at all. Could be your medicines, could be your lab conditions, could be your other aspects of gamete handling, could be so many things. That's where I thought that yes, why aren't people focusing on these, and people are only concerned with the clinical? Since it requires a medicinal or a healthcare aspect to it, people are only focused on the doctor, whereas there are so many other broader facets to a fertility treatment that you have to do all of them in conjuncture with the healthcare treatment that is being on. And that's where I focused on all those other parameters and how could I probably give it from a management perspective, smoothen the process, systemize it, and make it better and more evidence based. That is, that if I even change it by a 5 percentage point, our success rates would be far better than our competitors or our peers. And that's what happened during the 6 or 7 years of our journey, that we have been able to give excellent success rates to our couples or to our people or patients.
So, Sarthak, when you decided that you want to get into this business, I believe you went and got an MBA in hospital and
Yeah, I did
healthcare
in healthcare. Yeah,
management.
yeah.
That sounds like a smart move, because for somebody who ran a laundry business before and a gaming business, it would be very important to get equipped with some skills before you actually go and do process re-engineering or process innovation. So, how important do you think for new people who are starting businesses is to actually know what you're doing?
It's essentially important. And for me, personally speaking, if I even get a chance today to learn something, to attend a course, to go back to university, life is a continuous learning. It's evolutionary. I believe there would not be anyone, even Warren Buffett or Bill Gates, would not say that they would know everything. Jeff Bezos or anything. AI, ML, and all these new technologies that have evolved recently in the last 5 to 7 years. Everyone would like to learn that how can even you apply those to your area of expertise, or how can you change the status quo. So for I always believed, or I still believe, that that you should never think that there is nothing else to learn in the world.
India's got this, we call it the demographic dividend. We are the youngest society in the world, where I think 540 million young people below the age of 30. So it doesn't seem that a country like India has a problem with fertility or making babies. We're just making for the rest of the world.
So our fertility rates are also declining. I mean, that's a statistic. It's declining all across the world. Europe is suffering very badly. Japan is into a negative fertility rate, where there are more old people than young people. India, although the amount of young people are huge, but probably our fertility rates were like 3.8 something back in the 90s, is now back down to 2.6 or 2.7 per thousand couple.
Yes, because people are choosing to have
Choosing
lesser
to have babies,
babies.
yes. Yeah. There are a lot of reasons why this infertility can be happening, from career to lifestyle factors to environmental to a lot of other things, is because infertility is increasing.
So
And when
traditionally, Sarthak, this has been seen as a woman problem, and at least that's the way it's been depicted in a lot of Bollywood movies. And so, if the couple can't have babies, tend to blame the woman. But is this really true?
Oh, completely wrong. There is no scientific data or proven fact that women, eventuality, what we see, it's an equal problem, 50% of men, 50% of women. Although I personally feel that it's more of a male problem now, that we see nowadays. Male infertility is increasing rampantly. Men smoke more, men drink more, men are more obese, they have a more sedentary lifestyle, their stress levels are more, and that's when most of the men complain. But eventuality, there is no facts being that it's an equal problem. Both contribute equally, and to now, male infertility has started increasing a lot because of other pressures also.
So, 14 centers in a country of 1 billion people. While 14 is an amazing achievement, it also sounds like it's a drop in the ocean.
It is actually.
So, and because you own your own centers, isn't that a detriment to scale? Have you thought about how big this can eventually become?
True.
And if you would still continue with the same model?
True. It's for a population of 1.3, more about 1.4 billion people, and statistically speaking, 1 in every 6 couples are now facing the problem of infertility. 14 is nothing, and eventuality, we have a lot of other IVF centers across India, but scaling is something what I believe that what we do is very scientific. So just to have that on scale has been a pain point for me, but I'm very sure that it's not that it can't be scaled. But as I just explained the process, it's too technical and too scientific to be replicated very easily. That will you be able to sustain your success rates across everywhere with the same amount of skill set? And that is where we have another aspect of our institute is the training institute that we run, is because the amount of skill required to successfully replicate this is huge.
But you know, infertility also has a slightly complex supply chain, if I might say.
Yeah.
There are technicians and doctors and surrogates involved as well.
True.
And sometimes the rewards of this are not fairly distributed among the entire supply chain. And we hear about a lot of surrogates who are in penury and they are not really well taken care of. And I believe you launched a social initiative around that. So tell us more about that.
So, broadly speaking, the three aspects in an infertility treatment are the male, female, and if you say a surrogate comes in the third aspect, or there could be three problems, with the sperm, with the egg, or with the uterus of the woman, where you're implanting it back. So if the sperm is not correct, you have a sperm donor. If the oocyte is not correct, you have the oocyte donor. So you have two aspects. But what if the third woman, the uterus is not there? There could be medical reason that there is a hysterectomy, that your uterus has been removed, or there are fibroids or cysts, all the medical problem that a woman can have which she can't conceive. Or there are single men who want to, have babies. We have examples like Tushar Kapoor, Karan Johar, who recently had through surrogacy. So they want to reproduce, or they want to have children of their own. The third aspect is the surrogate mother. So when we do surrogacy, which we have seen, it says that, it's been mentioned in the news a lot that, the poor women have to do this. But we have spoken to almost thousands of surrogates, and what we have is that when they get lakhs of rupees for something that they're doing out of their own free will, and the reasons for why they do this is because either firstly to put a roof on their head, which is the first prime reason. The second is to put their kids through school, because all surrogate mothers are actually proven mothers, someone who have actually delivered. So, and the third reason is either to repay off debts or something. So everyone is doing from an economic standpoint of view, but the amount of lakhs of rupees that they get completely changes their lives. And what we saw that when we have surrogate mothers for 9 months, how do you ensure that this much amount of money probably puts them out of a spot of bother or gives them happiness for a little while? But how do you ensure that this happiness is sustained is where we started our another social arm for our organization called Upkar, which was meant to skill surrogate mothers who are there for 9 months, to skill them either in stitching, embroidery, certain other skilling works, other manual labor work, which wherever you can skill in. So for 9 months, we keep on skilling them as long as they are with us, so that after the delivery, they can start utilizing their skills and earn a better regular income than what they were doing earlier.
So infertility is certainly not an India-specific problem.
No.
This is a global problem, right? So, and India, even though the treatment is expensive, it's about, I believe, 2.5 lakh rupees for a typical treatment. Certainly, the rates and the charges would probably be much more outside of India for the same thing. So, have you ever considered taking all your training and expertise and process improvement to other parts of the world?
Why wouldn't we? But again, as it's a very regulated option outside, when it's 2 lakhs in India, it's almost upwards of $15,000 in the US, and in the same way in Europe, more than 10,000 euros.
You think they could come to India for treatment?
They do. We get a lot of people, not specially for IVF, say from Europe, but Africa, Afghanistan, Middle East. All of them are coming to India because of the cost.
Because they have a supply side issue. They don't have IVF clinics.
No, they have. The cost is a big detriment for them, and the success. So Indian doctors, there's a very trust factor when it comes to, say, Indian doctors. You would see in the US or UK also, or in Europe, that there are a lot of Indian doctors which are at a very well-respected position. And when it comes to healthcare, Indian healthcare scenarios comes at a very affordable alternative, as well as from a very trust perspective that these doctors handle, or they're special with care. So that is where a lot of African, Southeast Asians, Middle East, Eastern European countries are coming to India. And India is a big medical tourism hub, and that's why we are also a very big fertility tourism hub, I would say. There are a lot of our patients are from abroad. They're coming from abroad.
Saarthak, you've been a serial entrepreneur. No. Now, while this business is doing extremely well, there must be a gene inside you which is already thinking of what to do next. True. And in some sense, you've already grown this business and diversified it to some extent. You're supporting the sperm banks and also dabbling in what kind of training and equipment for this industry and so on. But what is next for you? Is it going to be again in the fertility domain, or are you thinking of something completely different?
No, why not? You should never limit yourself to any one idea. I'm saying you have done, as you said, that after a scale, you can always diversify from your perspective, and life teaches you a lot of skill sets and a lot of other learnings. So if I've learned something during my journey, I can obviously apply this to an opportunity that comes, and opportunities are plentiful. This is where probably, as being a serial entrepreneur yourself, you would see that where can you see is the next growth opportunity. Could be for I since I am very well versed with healthcare, could be in the pharmacy business, could be e-pharmacies, could be any other
But
aspect
what
of
specific thing are you thinking of next?
that is something that we are currently working on, but I would not like to disclose that because we would want to
But give
achieve
some
it.
ideas to our audience about, what opportunities are there in the healthcare space.
Oh, plenty of opportunities. Healthcare is completely an untapped market. India is full of host of diseases, completely unregulated. There's a lot of transparency issues, a lot of affordability issues. You name it. Our Prime Minister has launched Modi Care, as we call it, specifically in
Ayushman
India,
Bharat.
Ayushman Bharat, but it's not still not applicable. A lot of people, hospitals are not ready to take Ayushman Bharat since the rates are they're saying are very measly. The patients who are there are not applicable to do that. So there is a big, huge mismatch in terms of demand, in terms of supply, in transparency. A lot of challenges where this is where technology comes into play. That you solve any one challenge anywhere, or you are able to make the process simple and easy. A lot of things can be done, and I believe in terms of healthcare, everything is difficult.
But we've seen a lot of very successful healthcare businesses, started by doctor entrepreneurs.
Oh,
Whether it's docpreneurs,
Yeah.
whether it is Medanta or Apollo Hospital and so on. But we are also seeing an emerging set of healthcare businesses which are headed by non-doctors, like yourself or Clove Dental and many, many others. So what's the jury out there on should healthcare businesses be started by doctors or not by doctors?
Should be started by, I mean, doctors are obviously all welcome, but why not? It should be started by any common man who's facing a problem. Every entrepreneur has to have that urge, and I mean, correct me if I am wrong, that the urge by any consumer. I mean, a patient at the end of the day is a consumer, and any urge that they are feeling that they can do this better. There are a lot of Practos, 1mgs, PharmEasy's. There are so many healthcare startups that have done really well, is because they felt there was an urge, a lack of need, and they can do this process better, or they can make this thing more affordable, or they can make this thing easily accessible. Any one of the discrepancies, and they made it happen through
So if you're
technology.
not a doctor, it's not a limitation.
Not at all, not at all, and it shouldn't be, because I actually feel that if you're a doctor, you're actually limited in your scope on how you do things. As a doctor, you're looking at the patient only. That what are the clinical symptoms? Why isn't he feeling? They would not be concerned on is he taking the medicine on time or not on time? Is he actually, what are the follow-ups that he did? Would he have his earlier prescription with him or not with him? So these are the challenges which all the docpreneurs are solving. Not docpreneurs, sorry, the other entrepreneurs are solving. That you come to me as a patient and I look at you and I give you, and that's the end of the day. I'm not concerned with everything else that's happening around.
So what kind of arguments do you have with your mother?
A lot of arguments, but as a great co-founder that she understands that the decision what I take would be for the betterment of the company, and I understand that no, there's no doubting around the clinical aspect, but that whatever decision that she also takes is from the betterment from a patient perspective. I would like to ask you that, as you said about scaling, and everybody wants to scale, everybody wants to go across India, across the world, and you have had such a great experience of scaling a company to great heights. What would you advise? Is finance the only thing required to scale, or there are certain factors which, I mean, I meet a lot of younger entrepreneurs who are only asking for money, and if I had the money, I will be able to do this. If I had the finance, I'll be able to do this. So, what would be your advice that where does money is important to understand? What more than money is required? See, even if you get money, I see a lot of entrepreneurs fail after even receiving money. So, what would you advise is that what is it? Does it require more than the finance?
So Saarthak, that's a fantastic question. And I can see this question is germinating in your mind because you have big dreams and ambitions for International Fertility Center yourself.
Yeah.
I think if you look at the whole problem statement about scale,
Yeah.
I think that statement comes into play once you have a working model that is boutique, that is small, and then usually a founder starts thinking, well, how do I now go to across the world and so on. And in 99% of the cases, it's not the money. It's actually the management expertise to scale. For example, if you take the case study of your company, I think some of the limitations to scale will be, are there enough trained people to do this? There'll be logistics involved. There'll be the purely management problems. How do you manage quality if you have 1400 centers instead of 14 centers? How do you manage customer complaints? How do you manage to ensure that you're running an ethical business? These are not related to money. And the best business models are self-sustaining business models. So you don't need external finance to scale. You actually need to put a very strong management process in place. So even if you look at the converse side of this, if you look at hyper growth companies who fail, and there are many, many examples of that, and that is only for one reason: they haven't managed to master the art of scaling. So I think scaling is not simply about money. It's a different ball game. Running, one fertility center is a different ball game. Running 1,000 of them is a completely different business by itself. And I think what's important to understand in scale is that the person who made the business successful, is that entrepreneur the right person to scale the business?
True.
It requires a completely different skill set. And that is the time when a lot of founders go out and reach out to people who have experience in scale. Scale is about human capital, about supply chain, about logistics, and so on. It's more to do with management. So I think, and the other thing that's sort of becoming very important and very relevant today is that everybody is not thinking about scale. So you heard of this small is beautiful movement, where people are saying it is not imperative to scale. It's not necessary to scale. Even if you do something small and that's beautiful, that's good enough. A lot of the socially conscious entrepreneurs are saying, look, we are going to create a model. And if that model is successful, we don't have to scale it. Many other people can come and scale it and solve the bigger problems of the world. Because the biggest problems of the world cannot be solved by one company scaling. It probably requires 1 million entrepreneurs. And so you distribute the knowledge and you distribute what you've learned and your intellectual property, and let many, many people come into a platform and help that. And these are some of the emerging ideas about scale.
True. And it becomes a movement, as you said, that your idea should become a movement at the end of the day, and then actually the scale will come by itself.
Yes, indeed. Meeting Dr. Saarthak Bakshi was a very refreshing change, because he's one of the few entrepreneurs that I've met who've started a business along with their mother. And this is a very unique business, the International Fertility Center, one of the largest chains of IVF clinics in India, where Saarthak brings the young, dynamic energy, and the mother brings the clinical and the medical and healthcare skills in the business. Great combination. But how long is this combination going to last? Saarthak's an entrepreneur who's run 2 businesses before, and both these businesses, unfortunately, didn't do well. The present business is doing well, but facing a problem of scale. After 7 years in the business, they have 14 centers. Will the young and dynamic energy of Saarthak match with the more settled and the more risk-averse traits that his mother, a well-known doctor, brings to the table? That would be an interesting subject for the board of directors to take up. And we have to watch this business as to how it does in the future. Saarthak is a wonderful entrepreneur who speaks very eloquently and very passionately about the fertility business and the various process improvements that he's brought to the table. And he's one of those generation of healthcare entrepreneurs who are not doctors. Therefore, they are able to bring a fresh perspective to issues like supply chain, logistics, training, scalability, financial modeling, and so on. And perhaps that is the refreshing change that India needs to see. A partnership between doctors who bring the clinical knowledge and expertise and non-doctors. And in this particular case, both these talents incidentally come from the same family, the Bakshi family.